Before we begin the lesson tonight, I will answer 3 questions that are always sent to me. 1. Yes, I have lots of clothes. I put on this shirt every time so that you are not distracted at all by what I am wearing, by anything that I am doing. That is why for all scriptures you look at the cross on the wall. For then you see only God. When you have to look at a human, you are distracted. You do not necessarily see God. If you always have a human intervening between yourself and God, you never then have a true communication with just Him. On this shirt is the emblem of one of the organizations with whom I volunteer and have volunteered with for, I think this is my 9th year or my 10th year. I try to cover it with all this long stuff. The name of the group is CORAS, CORAHS.org. We are now an international group because we've added the Bahamas, we're adding Guam, which is really screwing things up because of the timeline, and we've got Canada. Those are small compared to what we have in the United States. But we, once per day, go out and measure the 24-hour precipitation gain. We did when the floods occurred yesterday in Kentucky. We had 44 different volunteer groups that gained some level of that flood. There were people that were what you would call in the zone of the flood, but they only got 1 to 2 inches. That is why we have so many volunteers and always need more in every state of the United States, farming, in the city, everywhere, in Canada. And if you want me to check for other countries, we'll be happy to do that for you. Our lesson today is titled, Another Miracle. Oh, what's that? That Jesus fellow saved someone else from death. Oh, good for him. Child or adult? Another girl to be fed, eh? Anything else in the news? In our society, we've become so inured to miracles. In the same way we've become desensitized to violence. We no longer celebrate or rejoice the miracles. It took the murder of 29 children under the age of 8 years old, and that violence caused a miracle. The children are leading the way out of this horror, and he's downed. Another saved from certain death, and the reply of major parts of the world. So what? A child dead for 15 to 90 minutes. She is already measured for her burial cloth, but without medical aid, returned from the dead to the land of the living. People reply, yeah, but with those young ones, they probably didn't know how to check for a pulse properly. Such a backwards area there. Or with a child of 90 minutes underwater. The one response that we in the medical field use every time. You're not dead until you're warm and dead. For any person who falls into a frozen lake or a frozen river, the heart and the brain snap down into a compressed level of operation, so that though their body temperature is in 70 to the 85 degree range, 22 to 17 to 22 degrees, well below the normal. This causes the human body to go into a hyperstasis state. The person cannot be registered on any electronic device. But once you have them warmed up, provided you have been at some point during the warming, giving them oxygen and providing circulation to them, they have better than a 98% chance of life. And that is not any miracle. A woman with a rare brain disease, she's the 12th known case in almost 100 years, has what doctors would have termed insufficient brain capacity to sustain life. But no one told her. She drives, lives independently, and communicates freely online, writing for journal articles. She teaches classes, online and in person, and she likes to go around in the medical school, teaching the new doctors to see if they're willing to be taught. The first question she asks is, when you see this scan before you go into the room, how much functionality do you expect from this patient? And there's always one in the room who will say, functionality? She's dead. And then after, there are responses from everybody in the room. She clears the anonymizers from the scans and then turns to the one who declared loudly and proudly and says quietly but assuredly, I hope you don't declare that all of your seminar leaders are dead or brain dead as they start their seminar. And those ones are the ones with the deepest learning. I continue to see them often in the medical community. And they continue to thank me for that class. I find 10 doctors like them in the Mayo Clinic where I've taught, who think it's something else that's dying from my buttocks because they don't believe the scans. Tells you about doctors. 13 boys lost in a mountain cave during the monsoon season. The cave flooded, trapping the boys and their guide inside. 10 days later, access to food, the boys are found alive. Despite the guerrilla activity in the area, groups hugely active, they are silent. Civilian and military diving and caving experts from around the world rushed to the area at their own expense. from the West Coast US, almost $3,000 for transport alone. From UK, almost 2,000 British pounds. After 16 days of rain, there are 5 days of no rain. And then the monsoons start again, and the rescue work begins. The guerrilla work groups are still quiet, for they too are watching the events. Yeah, so what's your point? The next miracle. Look at yourself. For if Christ returned today and stood in front of you without his showing you of his hands, feet, or allowing you to put your hand in his side as Thomas did, would you believe? Blessed are those who believe without having seen.